Awesome. So I'll be talking about obstore, a new library for accessing S3, Google, and storage and Azure storage, and its new integration with Zarr. So there are three main cloud providers, and each of them have their own, at least in the Python side, different APIs for working with their backends. And that means that if you're writing Python code that is today working with S3, but then you want to make it generic so that you could work with Google Cloud in the future or Azure in the future, then you might need to create your own abstraction layer on top of each of these APIs so that you can use all of them. Um, this is pretty annoying. And so there are libraries, primarily up till now FSPec, that provides a single API for accessing S3, Google Cloud Storage, and Azure Storage with a single Python API. And so obstore is a similar library to FSPec, although FSPec really tries to target this idea of things being files, and those don't necessarily map very well to object storage objects, which are much similar to HTTP requests that just happen to have specific types of authentication than files. Like if you're working with files locally, you have this expectation that you can have pretty low latency for each time you're reading data from a file, and that doesn't hold true to cloud storage. And so obstore is a new modern library that uses a Rust library under the hood to access each of these with a single API. This means it doesn't have any Python dependencies and has is really pleasant to use. And so, for example, it has full type hinting. It's fully async, but also synchronous optionally if you want that for development. But the async support makes it potentially really fast. And so here, there's also nice parts of obstore like streaming downloads that uh, you can say stream from an HTTP object into a bucket, or you can list without having to do any pagination yourself. And so that you can look at the documentation for obstore itself at ds.io or just Google obstore. Then all of this really started from Ryan Abernathy talking to me at the Zarr Sprint like a year and a half ago or so, and nerd sniping me into working into exploring these kinds of ideas. And so now, almost a year or more than a year after we started this initial PR, this was merged into Zarr recently in the past couple of weeks. It is expected to be released as part of Zarr 3.1, I believe. Uh, then it's pretty easy to use because all you have to do is pass into the zarr.storage.object store uh, class. And so here's a minimal example. I'll link the GitHub gist in the chat as well. I put it in the doc as well. And so here's an example from the Microsoft Planetary Computer examples, where the first three lines are just using PyStack as a helper to open their Stack API, find the information about this Daymet Zarr stack item, and then it'll passing it into just these couple lines. For one, automatically fetches this Microsoft credential information for you, and then it's just one line of code to wrap this obstore object into this Zarr object that can be read by the Zarr API or Xarray. And this has really good performance aspects so far that we've found. Max has been doing a lot of awesome benchmarking. He found that this uh, with this 24 gigabyte Zarr example, we were able to fetch data three times more quickly than with FSPec default backend. Although we did need to raise the default concurrency from Zarr up from 10, ideally to about 100. And this is because obstore's async tasks are really efficient, so it doesn't it doesn't have a lot of overhead if you have 100 concurrency limit instead of 10. And so the general idea with obstore is that if you're making only one request, then it's probably uh, up to your network speed for how fast that can complete. But if you're making 1,000 requests, and with Zarr, we have a lot of these relatively small files that we're requesting, then we can reduce this overhead a lot and have the total time be a lot faster than what you might have previously with FSpec. And uh, so as part of this API, you need to create an obstore store object to pass into the Zarr adapter. And I just wanted to highlight that this is pretty pleasant, especially if you're working in some IDE like VS Code, because of the full type hinting in obstore. And so it'll automatically suggest the different parameters that you can customize into each of these store objects, and say on the bottom right, if you try and pass this string into a parameter that's expected to be Boolean, then it will automatically give you a type error. Um, and just a couple extra slides of saying that there's a few different options of how you create the store. I'd suggest looking at the obstore uh, documentation website to get the full example here. And we plan to have more examples of this Zarr obstore integration in the future. And let us know if you test it out and how it goes.